So welcome everyone. Great to see you all here. Thank you for coming along. How to sell your business. So this is the first in our Sale or Scale series, which is all about protecting yourself, your business, and all the years of hard work that you've invested into building that business. I'll go into some detail as to why. And we'll go into a little bit of an overview of what the process is to sell your business, because most business owners, they only ever do this once. They build up their business, and after several years they then sell it on. Some obviously have multiple, but the majority of SMEs, it's going to be a one-time thing for them. And there isn't always an awful lot of information knowing what to expect. So if we get started, how to sell your business for maximum value. So my purpose for this particular presentation or masterclass is to give you a bit of an inside track on what a buyer will be looking for, and then to be able to use that to your advantage, just so that you have everything in your mind before you even get to that point of negotiating with a buyer. What are you going to get from today? So from today, we're going to have a quick look at the general terms of M&A, an insight into the different buyer perspectives, what they might be looking for, what things might push the value up or down for them, a quick overview of the process, and due diligence, which is a really large part of the process, and can trip a lot of people up. An option to work with us, of course, if you're anywhere near thinking about protecting your business or selling your business. And we've got a short due diligence checklist that you'll be able to download, which will give you a really good idea of the types of things that a buyer might be looking for. So if you wait to the end, you'll be able to download that checklist, and obviously a chance to ask any questions. A little bit about Good Biz and myself. So I started off obviously in corporate. I say obviously to those that know me, I originally had a corporate background. I've also worked with local council. I then moved on to being a small business owner. I then moved on to being a certified business coach, and did a mature business degree, a business degree as a mature student, which specialised in systems thinking. I was qualified in things like lean manufacturing and Six Sigma and all that good stuff. So a lot to do with process improvement and change management. And off the back of that, there was a lot of techniques and concepts that I got from my business coaching and all the other training that I had, and then working with small businesses, being a small business owner myself. I then partnered up with my current business partner, Alex, to form the Good Business Company, where we're bringing together a look at technology and AI, and what can we put into businesses to future-proof it. So part of my background also included doing what I do best, the processes, the people, the management, the systems, for business investors. So they would go find a deal, and I would come in behind and try to tidy up all those operations that help the business just to keep running. And that's when I got to see a lot of business owners at the most vulnerable, which wasn't always pleasant, especially when I was coming from business coaching kind of background, where my natural tendency is to try and help that business owner. So with that in mind, I want you to meet Marketing Mike. Now, he was the first person that I had to deliver this bad news to. We met him in a really busy Italian bistro cafe in the middle of a city. It was Glasgow. And he came in full of enthusiasm and energy because he was going to sell the business that he'd built up over the last 18 years. I think it was 18 years. It was a marketing business. He had a management team. He had recurring revenue in there. There was website design and IT support and all sorts within his marketing offer. And I had to go through all his details. I had to value the business, and then we, as myself and the buyers, sat with him in this cafe and we delivered the news to him. His business was worth absolutely nothing. 18 years of hard graft, and he had his eyes on the next opportunity, and it was worth nothing. And this same conversation just happened over and over and over again. Nearly all SMEs at a certain stage in their business had not really prepared for succession. Now, succession, whether that is retirement, going off to your next big project, or just needing to step back and let a manager take over the reins for a little while. So we made Mike cry, basically. His dreams of, I think he was going to go into property development, his dreams of having a few £100,000 from the sale of his business just didn't happen. And he hurriedly left that cafe. So to start us off on the topic, which is where probably business coaching starts off, is where do you want to take your business? Where is your end game? And although we're looking at the sale or scale, it is worth looking at what is your exit going to look like? What is your perfect exit? Because there are many different reasons to wanting to sell. It could be you're tired, burnt out, you have been missing time with your family. It could be that you're being forced to sell your business. If there's health issues, somebody's fallen ill, or you, member of the family. We've come across disputes between business owners, and one of the business owners are being forced out. I've even had couples. A business owner will come to me, and not always he, but they have been given the ultimatum of you either have your business or you have me. If you don't get rid of this business, I'm swanning off. And it could be just that you're thinking that it's time to move on. You're ready for that next opportunity. So there can be a lot of different reasons in there. And I will honestly say that sometimes if the reason for you thinking about selling is because there's something painful about running your business, such as missing family time, etc. We have had a lot of clients who, when they've worked with us to put their business on a more even footing, to get them out of the chaos so that they can step back more, the pain reduces and they actually quite like running their business again. Because they don't have to live in that chaos. They're not firefighting all the time. So it's really important to think about why would you consider selling, and then you would want to then set up what that perfect exit would be like. The other reason to be quite clear on why you want to sell is not only for your own psychological benefit, but it also benefits the buyer, because if it's a good business, why would you be selling it? So it's good to know and be very, very clear to both yourself and any potential buyer or person who you would like to succeed you, to understand why are you getting rid of that business. This last little bit, it's avoiding reactive decisions. There's a few times we've had a business owner who has put their business up for sale, often through a broker, and when it comes to crunch time, all the legal paperwork has been signed and it's handover time, there is seller's remorse, because they haven't thought through A, if they wanted to exit, and B, how they wanted to exit. So for me, a lot of this about protecting your business is to do with preparation. The other thing that you will want to think about is, how long have you got? You will want to reverse engineer the time. So think about what that perfect scenario is. Maybe it is when you're 72. Maybe it's when you are 32, but you have built the business up enough to sell it, to go and do whatever it is that you want to do next. The best time, so one of the people that I worked with as a business investor always used to say the best time to sell a business is just before the best year. And the reason behind that is because, excuse my language, but shit happens. We can have legislation, tax changes, employment law. I mean, we've seen enough changes quite recently. We have seen technological advancement beyond beyond what we ever thought possible 3 or 4 years ago. And then you've obviously got the health and lifestyle that life sometimes just throws you a curveball. So I will frequently say that just because you are preparing to sell doesn't mean to say that you are going to sell. This is about protecting your business so that should you need to or want to, all the hard work's been done. So when you talk to potential business buyers, one of the biggest issues that they will have with any business is know your numbers. And that's the same for if you are not planning on selling and you're just wanting to scale, or you want to make a more strategic decision. Knowing your numbers is really important. And one of those things around your numbers that you want to know is, what is your business worth right now? So if we go back to that point of, well, where do you want your end game to be? What do you want that exit to look like? It's really good to know, if you are going to exit, what does that valuation need to be? And then you need to know where you are right now so that you can understand, okay, what can I change to get me to that number? So the ideal exit isn't just about numbers. As we know, business is around people. So on top of the numbers, we also need to think about the creating what I call the curb appeal. So we need to know the numbers, which is different for every single industry. But we also need to know, okay, what's going to allow me to sell this business? How do I tidy it up? If you think about it like selling a house, when you put a house on for market, I think we can all agree that to get top dollar for a house or a car or whatever it is that you're looking to sell, to get top dollar, it's got to look good. It's got to be clean and tidy. Otherwise, people will start nitpicking and thinking that, oh, well, if they're not looking after the basics, what else have they not looked after? So one of the key things is, as we've said, tidying up your numbers, but there's also the things about the systems and the people. Can the owner step out? Because frequently a business investor, a potential buyer, is not going to want to buy a job. They're looking for an asset to invest in, which then gives them a return on their investment and does not require additional hours from them. So there's things like this, like the people, the processes, the systems, the tech. You can look at the other side of the sellability around the numbers, your EBIT, EBITDA, or net profit. Some business buyers will look at EBIT, some business buyers will look at EBITDA. It's sometimes buyer dependent, but sometimes it's industry dependent, because every industry is a little bit different. But part of that EBIT and EBITDA is increasing it, improving it. So you could have a look at reducing the cost savings and listing to a potential buyer, oh, we've got all these developments and all these sales are in the pipeline. That's about building that story and engaging the buyer, getting them enthusiastic in, look, I've only taken this business so far, but it's got all this opportunity. That alone can start pushing the price up a bit. If they can see that there's a trend an upward trend in profitability, and you've got all these plans yet to be executed, it can get them really, really excited and enthusiastic. So yeah, you want to look at increasing your net profit, adding better technology that makes things more efficient, increasing your sales, even simple things like extending contracts so that your recurring revenue might be coming up, and making sure that your management team or your team in general is really well trained, and they're responsible, and they're working pretty much autonomously without an awful lot of input from yourself. The reason being, as we said, business investors are looking for assets. They want that return on their investment, but it rarely happens. And the statistics really underline this fact that in the UK, 85% of businesses listed with a broker never sells. 85%. And I think if you're in the if you're in the US, that's as high as 92%. And the smaller the business is, the harder it is to sell. But across the board, regardless of industry, the key things is, can the business owner or founder step away from the business effectively, i.e. do you have the people and the processes, and are the finances in order? Does it have a decent profit, and is there a trend for that decent profit? It's a bit like London's fake houses. I don't know if anyone's heard of London's fake houses. This is one of the more famous ones. It's in Linster Gardens. And frequently what happens is a business owner decides that they want to sell their business. So they go to the broker. The broker has a look at the figures, and they produce this lovely facade for your business to attract prospective buyers. And then once the business buyer or potential buyer has got the IM, the information memorandum, and looks at, oh, what a pretty business, they start looking under the bonnet, or if you're in the US, under the hood of the car. They lift the lid and they find this. It's an empty house. There's nothing there, because the heart of the business is the founder. And if you're selling the business and you're walking away, there's pretty much just a shell left, which will scare nearly any buyer away. There is one caveat though. So from this, we want to understand the different buyers. So we've got as far as, okay, you know why you want to sell, and you know when you want to sell, and you potentially know what you want to sell it for. What's your magic number? This is more to do with the how. How are you going to sell it? So we want to understand the buyer, and we want to look at different types of offers, which I'll go into next. So the different buyers are pretty much strategic and private. And there is the question between knowing what you want to do there is, do you plan to leave a legacy, or do you just want a fast exit? I.e., give me the money and I'll leave you to it. So you need to think about and this is why it's really important to know why you want to sell. You need to think about what you want to leave for your staff or your clients or your family, etc., etc., etc. Because we've got, on the strategic buyer side, we've got competitor and corporate. Corporate, more than competitor, will tend to buy, not always, but they will tend to buy on turnover, because they've already got those systems and the processes and the management team to absorb the sales that you've got on your books. And they don't care about anything else. So they're quite happy to say, no, I'm just going to buy the revenue. I'm going to buy the sales. And that's what they'll take. The competitors, depending on their size, can be similar. However, they will sometimes act like a private buyer. Competitor will normally also want to try and absorb at least some of the staff and pick over the best of the processes, but it will be probably merged into their own business. Then you've got the family office private equity type of buyer. they kind of sit sometimes between the two. So they have the money to potentially pay you what a corporate buyer would pay you, but they have the tick boxes that potentially a private buyer wants. So if we look at the private buyer, the broker will frequently find you a private buyer, or you might find one yourself through networking or your own contacts, etc. And the private buyer will want that asset. They will want a self-sufficient business that does not need you, and they will value your business on that. And then you've got the internal private buyer, which is like a family member or a management buyout or something like that. Now, when you've got the likes of the family office private equity, it's kind of the best of both worlds, but they have slightly higher standards because they're very much about the investment, return on an investment. They have very, very high standards. And if you don't fit their boxes exactly, they don't want to look at you. Whereas a private buyer, they will be a bit more forgiving if they can get excited about your business. So a family office might demand that you have to use our system and you have to report in a certain way and by a certain time. So you've probably got all of these boxes that you are going to have to tick, which is not unachievable, but you will need time to get the business into a position to kind of leverage that opportunity. So you'd need to find a family office or a private equity that is interested in your industry, and then try and find from them, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to deliver on my business for you to pay me, bigger multiples than a private buyer would? So it can be a longer process, but it can be worth it. So that's a little bit of a dive into the different types of buyers that you tend to come across. Obviously, you've always got the time wasters, etc. That a broker will at least try to fend off for you. And talking about brokers, they are experts in their field, as are solicitors, as are accountants. The only thing I would say about these experts is don't be led by them. And what I mean by that is you will want a very clear idea on what you want your exit to look like, and make sure that they understand that, so that you are able to say, no, I want it like this and I want this type of buyer. Otherwise, they might set up a sale for you that is not going to suit your needs or your aspirations, etc. So use them, be advised by them, but make sure you know your own mind and you're really sure on what direction you want to go in and why. So it's about having conviction on what you want to happen. So the other side of this coin is the types of offers. So we are looking at things like buyer finance, vendor finance, which is frequently cash in the business, stock options, salaried, earn-out, deferred payments. The earn-out, usually the on paper looks the most attractive, and in reality is the worst thing you can ever do, because it's called golden handcuffs, because you are handcuffed to that business and you cannot exit that business with the valuation promised unless the business hits certain targets. And the issue with that is frequently when you are working in the business that you've already sold, you've kind of emotionally checked out. And then that starts affecting the figures, the targets that you're trying to meet. And it makes it just harder and harder and harder. And you end up becoming an employee, which most business owners absolutely hate. And it just becomes a really cantankerous, acrimonious relationship. So I would say with earnouts, golden handcuffs, avoid wherever possible. The vendor finance and the stock options are really interesting. And if you use our valuation service, I will go into great depths on how you can leverage those to increase your value by 50%, sometimes up to 100%, just by setting up a deal in your head prior to talking to any buyers. So it's if you are understanding each of these types of finances, And you'll hear the term asset finance as well, which is kind of included in the vendor finance, because the buyer is going to leverage the assets in the building, in the business, sorry, which can be a building or it can be plant and machinery, etc. But it is basically all vendor finance to leverage cash from within the business to then pay the seller out. The stock options as well can help safeguard your exit. So if you don't get all your money up front, which is, I have to say, it's really rare for a buyer to rock up to your doorstep and have a pocket full of cash just to give it to you. And even if they did have that amount of money, they will rarely do it, because there's a lot of risk in buying a business, because it's still a bit unknown, even with all the due diligence that we're about to look at. They will want you to share the risk with them. So if you think about this, that when you are selling a business, in effect, you are getting in partnership with the buyer for a period of time. That period of time could be as short as a month, and it could be as long as 2 or 3 years, depending on how long the process takes. And believe me, sometimes it takes 2 or 3 years to get these deals done. And that is frequently down to lack of preparation on the seller's behalf, which we'll dive into in just a minute. So what is the process? The process is, very briefly, it's quite a simple process. It's the components within the process that gets lengthy. There's an initial inquiry. So maybe you've already listed it on a broker, but maybe you've made a few quiet, inquiries to see if anyone would like it. But there's an initial inquiry about, I am interested in buying your business. That initial inquiry will require usually at least 3 years worth of full accounts, 3 full year-end accounts. Some people will look at a trend, some people look at an average, but they are looking at your profitability, because whatever happens, they want a return on their investment. That investment could be leveraged, that investment could be their time, it could be actual cash, but they want a return on that investment. So they're going to look at the profitability, and they will want to have a look at what is coming in and out of the business, so that they will want the accounts. That really scares some sellers off when they haven't done this before. Well, that's private information. It is and it isn't. Depending on the size of your business, you'll sometimes have your full accounts on Companies House. If you're still considered a micro company and you don't have to list a full, you've only got the balance sheet on Companies House, but a lot of the information that a buyer is going to be asking for is already in the public domain, and it's common practice. In fact, I don't know a buyer who will not ask for this information before anything else. You can ask for a non-disclosure agreement. It's not really worth it, but some people feel so vulnerable about this that they will demand an NDA. We then go to a letter of intent, tends to be, that's the US term, or heads of terms, which is more the UK term, which is pretty much, it is that letter of intent. You are intending to buy the business, you are suggesting that this is what you think the business is valued at, and you are inviting, or being, as a seller, you are being invited into due diligence to finalize what that valuation will be. And that is where the due diligence comes in. And this due diligence can last months and months and months. And it's really exhausting, which is why we will suggest to sellers or business owners that they have something akin to due diligence that's kept up to date all the time. One, you will need to do far less work should you ever need to sell the business. You will need to do far less work should you ever need a loan or anything like that. But also, it's a really good practice because it highlights risks and opportunities that when you're, kind of in the day-to-day business, you can sometimes forget about. So that pre-SBA due diligence can last what feels like forever, and it is absolutely exhausting. And frequently, we will get 12 months of work trying to be shoehorned into about one. I'll go into due diligence a little bit more, but after due diligence, we've got, okay, they've looked at everything that they think they want to look at, pretty much, and they want to negotiate the final share purchase agreement terms. There may be a little bit more due diligence while that's going on, because they'll be asking questions to nail out the detail. Then you actually sign the share purchase agreement, and then usually, not always, but usually the buyer will ask for 30 days post SPA due diligence, at which point, if they discover anything else that they were not aware of, they reserve the right to knock your price down even further. So, due diligence, what is it? I've got the legal definition there and the business definition there. And what we're really talking about is the business definition, which is pretty much looking at everything a buyer can think of to check that this is a good proposition, that they are going to get a return on their investment. And what is involved? Absolutely everything that you can think of. Every single piece of work, every single sales that's on the books, every single client, every single contract, every liability, every asset, you name it, they will want to view the paperwork. They will potentially at some point want to start talking to the management team. If you've got a management team in there, they will want to talk to the management team, because they will want to gauge, can these managers continue doing the job without you? So they will get into everything. The key to this kind of part of the process is what Michael Goebel says about the systems running the business and the people running the systems. If you don't have your people and your processes in place, this becomes a really difficult part of the process. So how can it scupper a deal? Because if a deal is going to get scuppered at all, or your valuation is going to get eroded, or you are just going to say, right, that's it, you know. I don't want to sell it to you, or the buyer turns around and says, there's no way am I taking that on. It's due diligence. I would say due diligence takes at least 12 months. And frequently this part of the process just causes the deal to fizzle out. Deadlines have expired, etc., and the buyers are moving on. The adage of deals are like cement, it is so true. It's another reason why you want that DD, due diligence, done up front, so that when you get to that point of negotiation, you are not fatigued. You are able to just say, here you go. And if you think about it, when you're selling a house, when a house is presented to you with a really good home report, and you've walked around the house, and it looks like all the electrics are up to code, and you're turning on taps and the hot water's coming out and everything's looking pristine, you will usually find a prospective buyer will not look as closely as when they start seeing things that are not quite right. So why is it so important? This is it. So if you don't have that pre-prepared due diligence, or you don't give yourself enough time, you have this employees, if they are nervous, they will leave. And that nervousness will come about if you are the business, if you are still the heart of that business. Whereas if you've got that manager in place that is running the company, and all the systems are running like clockwork, and you explain to them, whether it's confidentially or not, or you only talk to certain employees or not, if they know things are running, even when you're not there, they will not get so scared. They will feel confident in the business that you've built, and they'll stick around. Same with clients, same with suppliers. If everything is relying on you and you're about to walk out, all three of these get really, really nervous. And then you've got the dreaded seller fatigue. So if you're trying to shoehorn this 12 months worth of work into about 3 months for a buyer, and you are the center of the business, then who's looking after the business? it genuinely has happened so many times. And then what happens is you get the clawback clause. So the clawback clause, if you remember, I said after you've signed the share purchase agreement, there is a 30-day period, usually, not always, but usually a 30-day period or a period where a buyer, after they've signed the SPA, will look through everything. And if they find that things are not what you said they were, they can start clawing back that valuation. And that can be something as simple as you've took the eye off the ball, your sales is diving as a result, so the profitability is affected, and they, depending on how good their paperwork is, they will potentially say, no, it's not worth that. You didn't tell us that your sales were dropping off. This is against the trend. You know, we can't do X, we can't do Y. We need to take this back off the valuation. And I have seen sellers have a serious percentage eroded from their business value because of all of these things, plus seller fatigue. And it could all have been avoided if they had gone down the let's get this ready first, guys. So that's part of protecting your valuation, and part of the improving your valuation is knowing the buyer and understanding the levers around the negotiation that you can pull. The other part of improving your valuation is what our services deal with. So we talk about sale or scale. We talk about protecting your business value and improving your business value. And to improve your business value, you have to have that curb appeal, and you have to have a growing EBIT or net profit. So what we do is we've got the sale or scale quiz, which is actually more of an audit. I keep meaning to change the word quiz because it's a little bit deeper than just surface level. It's more of an audit on how sale ready, scale ready is your business, which is free, by the way. I'll give you a link for that shortly. Then we've got the business valuation report, which goes into the business that as you are, where you are right now with your finances, etc. And it looks at your industry and the different multiples. And then it goes through, okay, if you were to look for this type of buyer, you can expect this type of price. And if you were to look at this type of buyer, you get a different price. If you were to increase your EBIT, you might be able to up your multiples. And I will also go, when we do these reports, we've got it set out so that we also go through what things you can do there and then on a piece of paper or on a spreadsheet to say, if I utilize this type of buyer leverage or this type of tool, etc., I can increase my value. So that's what the business valuation report is a deep dive into your business, your industry, and what levers can you pull to get you on that route of improving your valuation. Then we've got the deep dive, which is that due diligence. So it's that deep dive due diligence pre-sale preparation. And we have a very in-depth strategic conversation with the business owner, and we go through all the different parts of the business. So it's like the first 2 steps multiplied by 10. We pull together, we have a highly detailed due diligence project folder that goes into so we have been refining this for years over all the different businesses that we've looked at, valued, taken over, tidied up, etc. So it's years of experience in this due diligence project folder, and out of that, with the strategic meetings, we can then help you to set out a plan. So this is not something that you would want to do just for a buyer. This is setting out a strategic plan to make sure that all the T's are crossed, the I's are dotted in your business, so it is less likely to have any risk exposure within the business. So it's really good for identifying those risks and opportunities. Then we've got the business freedom framework, which takes all those 3 steps plus our business blueprint, which is talking about the delegation, the organizational strategy, the systems, the feedback loops, all of that good stuff, which will help the business owner or the founder to step further away from the day-to-day operations and further into the strategic, which is really where the valuation for your business starts to scale. So that's what we do with our services. This is your download, your due diligence checklist. So feel free to download it from here, but we will send all registrants a direct email with the link here. But that will get you your due diligence checklist, and it's a high level view of what a buyer might be looking for. And then finally, it's where to start. What do you do to start doing this? To look at your business in this from the buyer's perspective. So we're suggesting that if you look at your business from a buyer's perspective, which is trying to step out and look at the business as a product, rather than being in the business looking at your clients or how you're trying to serve your clients, looking at the business as an entire asset and what return on your investment. So you've invested potentially a lot of money, and I bet you've certainly invested a huge amount of time. What return on your investment are you getting right now? So where to start? You've got the sale or scale report, that audit on where your business is right now, or you can just simply book us a call. Book a call with either Alex or myself, and we'll go through where you think your business is, where you would like your business to be, and what kind of level of help you think you might need. Whether that's with us or not, doesn't matter. We don't mind if you decide, no, it's not for me, but we're still happy to have a phone call with you. So to round up, we're going to set out a poll. I just ping that out to everybody now to ask them to think about, okay, what topics would you guys find really interesting or really useful? This is kind of, like I said, it's first in the series, so we've got a few other planned. So how to value your business, a deeper dive on due diligence, what kind of things will frequently trip sellers up. So it's more about the protection, the buyer's breakdown, really getting into the check boxes that they will come to you with, the different exit routes. Some of that is down to mindset, what you're going to do if you are thinking about your business, because you don't want to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs after having such a busy, productive life. So making sure that you know what options you've got when you exit. And yes, I want to say thank you to everyone for turning up. I hope it was useful. And Alex, let's go to what questions have we got in the chat? If you would like to join me for some live Q&A on what does exit ready entail, how to protect the value in your business, and what is a buyer's perspective, we're running a few live masterclasses under the Sale or Scale series. I shall put the link below in the description or the comments, and we would love to see you there sometime.